Hi all, this is a video on how to document bowel movements within the care tracker in iCM. So I am in our care tracker and I am in one of our test folks, Daisy Duck. And the bowel movement record, if somebody is required to have that, will be scheduled for the day shift, the evening shift, and the overnight shift. Now, if you are in a home that does not have an awake overnight and somebody in your home is required to have a bowel movement record, please let me know that so that I can remove the awake overnight requirement for the bowel movement log. But if you are a home that is staffed with an awake overnight, then we will need the bowel movement monitored and logged for all three shifts, the day shift, the evening shift, and the overnight shift. And this is the same setup as we had on our paper bowel movement log. So we are just following that in iCM. The other thing that you have for the bowel movement log within iCM is the ability to do as needed logs. So if you documented for the day shift and you went off, so maybe, you had the morning shift of 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and you documented the bowel movement while you were there. And then another staff person took over during the day because a lot of our folks are home from the day program right now. And there was another bowel movement that took place. And obviously we don't want to delete what was documented for that day shift. So now we have the ability to add an as needed log as many times throughout the day as we need it. But we definitely want to make sure that we are at least documenting for the 3 shifts or the 2 if you do not have an awake overnight in your home, okay? So right now, I'm just going to show you the evening for this person because that's the time frame that I'm in currently while I'm making this video. So for somebody that requires a bowel movement log, you're just going to click on whatever shift it is that you have. Now, if it's already filled and you need to log a bowel movement that took place, then obviously you're going to use the as needed option, okay? So I'm going to go into the evening option. We have some statuses up here. We have occurrence not noticed, occurrence noticed, and refused. So occurrence not noticed would be used if maybe the person is not in our care at the time. Maybe, they're on a home visit with mom and dad. Maybe they are, hospitalized, whatever that may be. The other reason that you would use occurrence not noticed would be if they are receiving services at this time and there was no bowel movement, okay? So we have occurrence not noticed. Again, the only time that you would be marking occurrence not noticed would be if there's no bowel movement or they weren't in our services, in which case bowel movement is not known, okay? The other option you have for status is occurrence noticed. So anytime there is a bowel movement that you are charting, then obviously this is the status that you're going to select is occurrence noticed. So if you select the status of occurrence notice, then you would be selecting the bowel movement type, and you would also be selecting the Bristol stool type, okay? The other option that we have for status would be refused. So now refused is not refusing to go to the bathroom, obviously. Refused would be if somebody is pretty independent with their toileting needs and they're required to keep a bowel movement record, maybe because of a type of medication that they are on. So the nurse has asked us to document bowel movements. If this person is independent in their toileting and they do not want any help, they don't need any help, and they don't want you to come in and check on them afterwards, and if you ask them, did you have a bowel movement? Did you go to the bathroom? And they don't want to share any of that information, which is completely their right, then you can click refused and you can say the bowel movement is not known because we don't know it. Okay, so those are our options for statuses. So I'm actually going to chart that a bowel movement took place. So we're going to say the occurrence was noticed, and I'm going to say it was a small bowel movement, and then I'm going to pick the Bristol stool type. So whichever one matches the best, I'm going to go for type number 1. And I'm going to say, go ahead and add that. The time up here, sorry, I kind of skipped by that. The time up here is just, it's the default time for the time that I entered this particular log or chart. So if I am sort of coming in after the fact, maybe, I had to help clean somebody up. Maybe I got, you know, shift it to something else that happened in the house and I needed to take care of something. So if you need to change the time, you can by just clicking on that clock and adjusting the time. Otherwise, you can just leave the default. Time taken, you can ignore. That's just something built into the templates that we don't really use at Bella McCree. If everything is at baseline for this person and there's nothing out of the norm, then you don't need to put any notes. Now, if there is a baseline change with this person, so maybe this person has had a loose bowel movement, you know, multiple times on my shift, then that's something that's out of the norm. That's something out of baseline for this person. So in the notes, you know, because it's out of baseline, I want to write, you know, this is the third loose BM. Today, I call the nurse because obviously if something's out of baseline, we're calling the nurse. So I call the nurse. You want to say who the nurse is that you spoke with. And she asked that we monitor for the next hour, you know, provide water, and call back. There's another episode loose PM today. So maybe, you know, this is, you know, the fourth time, maybe that note says, you know, she asked us to call 911 or she asked us to take this person to urgent care. You would include all of that information in the notes so that you know exactly what the nurse asked you to do. And then again, just like any other thing that we can put in notes within the care tracker, you can use mentions. So if you are a DSP on shift and your supervisor is not working with you at the time, you can mention that supervisor just to let them know, hey, we worked it out. We took this person to urgent care, or hey, we called 911. This person was picked up in an ambulance. Obviously, we also, if it's an urgent situation, we also want to be calling that supervisor or texting that supervisor, whatever normal means of communication you use. But if you need to mention somebody just to give them the heads up, you can always use mentions. And then they'll get that nice little alert. But again, if this is something like an urgent situation, then obviously we would want to pick up the phone. We don't want to rely on mentions within iCM. Okay, but just wanted to point out that that's an option for you. If maybe this wasn't you know, a big deal and this person had, you know, one loose BM today and you just wanted to let the supervisor know, hey, this person had a loose BM today, you know, can you please monitor this person for, you know, overnight or for the next day to make sure that it doesn't happen again. We just want to make sure this was a one-time occurrence. That's a great time to use mentions within iCM. Okay. So once you're done, you can click done. Now, this is my test person, but I'm glad that this notification came up for this video. Everybody has the rule of if no BM has been recorded for 3 days, we're going to get this notification, this alert within iCM that says, hey, you know, no BM reading was found in the last 3 days, and you need to call or notify the RN and call the physician as needed. That's just something that's built in here, but obviously we want to call that nurse first to get directives on what we should be doing, because the rule is if somebody hasn't had a BM for 3 days, this is something that we want to call the nurse about. Now, you don't have to wait until the 3-day period to call the nurse. If somebody typically has BMs every day or every other day, and that's not happening, you do not have to wait until the 3 days to call the nurse. You can call the nurse ahead of time, you know, after 1 day has passed and say, hey, this is out of baseline for this person. Again, we should be calling the nurse anytime there's a baseline change. Hey, this is out of baseline for this person. This person typically has bowel movement, you know, every morning. That's his normal schedule or her normal schedule. And that didn't happen today. And then just notify the nurse. The nurse will give you directives, you know, check to see if the stomach's distended. Are they showing any signs of discomfort? Are they verbalizing any discomfort? And then we can just follow what the nurse tells us to do. We do not have to wait for the 3-day period to be up, okay? But this is what will come up. This obviously came up because this is my test person. So no, I'm not documenting bowel movements every day for this person within iCM. But this is something that will come up just to kind of give you or staff notice that, hey, it's been 3 days, you need to pick up the phone and call, okay? But if you see that, you can just say, okay. And then I do want to point out to you, if something happens throughout that shift, so I noticed that this person had a loose bowel movement and the nurse said, call back. If that happened, again, within the hour, I can click on this as needed log, because obviously I don't want to delete what I have here. I just want to add another log to this. I can do that. And I can say, the occurrence was noticed. It was another loose. I can pick this and I can say that it was this one. Again, I can leave the time. I can leave the time taken blank, and I can say I called the nurse and this is what the nurse said to do. Okay. So that's how you would do that within iCM. Now, the way that this shows, if you do this little drop-down menu here, and you'll see sort of a summary when you click on that down arrow, that little caret right here, and you can see all the different shifts that this particular log has. So we have all the as needed, day, evening, and overnight. And if this was somebody that we were charting for regularly, obviously, when you click on this, then all of the days and all the evenings and all the overnights should be filled out with the staff person's initial. And this is a great way for supervisors to see sort of, is something missing? Because if there is a blank day, evening, or overnight day in here, then obviously we did not document what we should have documented for that time period. For the as needed, that's not something that would be required to be filled out, but if a staff person did fill that out, then that information would be here. And this will kind of give you a breakdown of the statuses. So you can see not completed, and then you can see occurrence noticed. So obviously, I only have one in here, so it's just doing that. And this is just for the month. So this is only, day one. So 75% is not completed, because I only have one entry in here, and 25% is completed. Now, obviously, that doesn't give us great great information about what kind of bowel movement this person had. So I do want to show you, and that's going to be in our e-chart, how to pull that information up. So if you go to the e-chart, scroll down to these lovely green buttons, and here you can click on BM record. Now, this looks a little different. iCM is working on updating this screen for us. So now you have the option to say, try new BM record screen. That's what I'm going to ask you to click on. Now, eventually, if you are watching this after, I believe, like mid-March of 2021, then this new BM screen, that will be your default. That's what's going to come up automatically. But if you guys are going in here now, you can click try the new BM record screen, and it just gives us a better breakdown. Okay. So here you can put the date range. Now this is my test person, so I don't have a lot of data in here for this person. But somebody that you're currently serving, you're going to want to narrow that date range. So you can say, I want to see a year's worth, I want to see 2 months worth, and you can pick that start date and end date. You can also pick a predefined range. So you can say, show me the last 30 days, show me this month, show me last month. And that's already set up for you. You could also say, show the last 7 days, which would be the last week. Now, here you're able to see what was checked off. So the X's, that's not what was marked. It's the check marks that you want to pay attention to. So we marked today that this person had a loose bowel movement. And then we put in here the Bristol stool type. So obviously that's not, correct. That doesn't make sense. The Bristol stool type doesn't match up to what we marked. But what you guys would do would be correct. You can see the staff person that did this and the date and time. And then if there were notes, you can click view and you can see that. Okay. And then you also have the ability to go ahead and print that, and it will give you a nice little printout of this if you need it to do that. Okay, so that is how you're going to pull, if you ever need it to look at, a date range of the bowel movements instead of just looking at the care tracker entries one at a time. This is a great way to kind of see that for a period of time, whatever period of time you have picked here. Okay. So if you have any questions about entering the bowel movement information or pulling this bowel movement record, please let your supervisor know. And if you also have somebody in your home that requires that we keep a bowel movement record and you don't see that option on their care tracker, please reach out to your supervisor immediately so that we can correct that for you. The only time we should be using the paper bowel movement chart or log is for emergency situations like ICM is down or your internet is down or something like that. But other than that, everything should be entered through the care tracker for bowel movement records. Okay, thank you.